controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are Ace-Up Science here to make things make sense.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Ernie is so cute.
Ernie
right now.
is so, our dog is
Right
so
here,
cute.
and he's just wanting to be pet. And you know when you just face like, when I see our dog, I just like.
Write that down. An episode about cuteness and why you want to punch things that are cute. Okay, so
We're talking about Among Us, the craze.
the craze. So if you're a YouTuber, you want to go viral, you say Among Us, like Among Us characters at the grocery store or whatever.
We'll
And
see.
millions
if this
will
goes
watch.
Viral.
LOL, and here we are trying to go viral. Cheers.
Cheers. We're drinking, by the way.
It's the
Basically,
third time we've said that.
I know. What do we want to? How do we want to do this?
And that's the episode. Thank you. We wanted to
We're
clickbait
32,
title.
and-
Among Us is great. Yeah, no, seriously, we're 32. I had to force myself to play this thing. And I know what I leaned
But all our
into.
32-year-old friends are playing it.
Yeah, that's true. We have gamers, Gaymer.
I'm a gamer.
Yeah, you are. Okay, I'm going to pick you apart like a banana. Okay, wow, that's not working. I'm going to pick you apart like a scab.
I guess I'm not really a gamer.
You are a gamer. I would say you have a very busy life. You have lots on your plate. I think you'd be very much more a gamer if you weren't so busy.
Sure.
But we do have a lot of people in our life who now, when I talk to them, I'm like, that's a Gaymer because they're spending a lot more time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're addicted to Among Us. We have been brought into this world out of curiosity. We have played it a few times.
Yeah.
I
So
felt very
we're
old.
certainly not experts.
No.
But we're going to talk about the science a little bit today, but let's talk about our experience with it first. So
Wait, but we play Werewolf. No,
yeah,
we know how to play Werewolf.
For those who don't know Among Us, I mean, you've probably heard of it at this point. It's just like an online game where you're in a group of 10 people at most, and everyone's trying to figure out who is basically the imposter. Who's the one who's sabotaging and trying to kill everyone.
And you're playing with real people online, which as
Potentially your friends.
a bit of an extrovert, I love this. And my favorite part of Among Us was going in the chat and saying, "I'm gay. Anyone else?" And
Hey,
just like,
Greg was
like
so
shitty
weird.
chatting. It's so cool. I'm talking to strangers. I'm like, guys, like, what are we thinking about the election?
Like, it's very interesting to me because I've been such a weird internet kid my whole life that I've gone into forums when I was like 12 years old, like messaging people and stuff. And I feel
What,
like
you're saying I haven't?
I don't think you have because the way you interact is like very strange on the internet, but it's cool. It's interesting that you're like having that experience.
Well, I'm a bit of an extrovert / introvert, mainly an extrovert. If I have access to strangers and part of it is chitty chatting, I'm gonna chitty chat. So like, yeah, we're gonna try and figure out who the imposter is, but also I'm like, what's up? Like, what's your deal? So I really like that part of
But
it.
you don't say that. He truly just goes like, "I'm gay. Is that okay?"
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, "I'm gay too," or like they all start chiming in.
Or they're like, he's sus. And like they just like go back to the game. But
So-
okay, I think we just one more clarification. This game is played with strangers online. You're trying to figure out who the imposter is. One of the people of the 10 or 2 are the imposters. So it's
their job is to secretly kill you
Kill.
all, and the rest of the group's job is to figure out who the imposter is. So everyone's talking, everyone's doing tasks, everyone's like, the people who aren't the imposter are trying to finish their tasks fast enough because that's how they win the game. Or every now and then when you find a dead body, you vote on who you think the imposter is. So
And I'm going to say something that if you don't know this game, you're going to be like, well, now I'm confused. Only the imposters can go through a vent. Which is weirdly how you find it. They're like, he vented. And it's like, if you see someone go through a vent, you're like, okay, that's the imposter. And you have flashlights, so you can't just see everything at all times. You can only see like where you're around.
what?
Like you can only ever see, you can't like zoom out and just be like, I'm going to watch everyone.
Oh, yeah, of
Like
course, yeah.
you're only like, there's an acute awareness that you
yeah.
have, which is why it's kind of
That's
spooky.
called a
spooky.
video game, Greg.
Okay.
Like rarely do you just see everything. in a video game.
True. Whoa.
So, well, why don't we talk about a little bit about some science behind it, and then we can talk about our experience and
True,
just
but
video
I want
games
to
in
say
general.
one more thing, which is that if you've played the game Werewolf, this is direct. It's just Werewolf online with strangers. And I have a question.
A little more complex, I think.
Do people... Okay, it's the same game. And do people play Werewolf? And is Werewolf something weirdly that only our friends played? Like,
No, I think Werewolf's fairly popular.
It
and
is?
It definitely is not as complex, and I'm going to argue that because Werewolf, you're sitting in person in a group and you're just discussing, and everyone's trying to say like, I'm not the werewolf, I promise, and then you vote on who you think the werewolf is. But everyone has like different clues based on what character they are. But in Among Us, you also are given these tasks that you have to do. You're walking around a spaceship where you can only see certain things. So it's werewolf on steroids. It's werewolf if it was Clue.
You're right. But it's still important for a layman person not knowing anything to be like, we're on the werewolf spectrum. We're in the wavelength of the werewolf.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the same concept.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. Because I just didn't know if Werewolf was like a weird game that like only our friends played when we were drinking and stuff.
I don't know. I don't know how popular it is.
So let us know. #Side Note Podcast. Have you played Werewolf? We actually want to know because I honestly love it and play with our friends. And sometimes I'm like, are we crazy? And know
we
what?
truly just scream at each other.
And know what else is really funny is that in Werewolf, you have to sit around with your heads down with your hands in your heads, and we play it a lot at our house where we have big windows in the front of our house.
Pre-pan, obviously.
Pre-pan, yeah, that's true. Not playing Werewolf till 2023. But I always think about people walking by and seeing this dinner party setup, and everyone has their heads down because you listen to an app that's like, now so and so heads up, and they would have been like, is everyone crying? Like, is that a devastating party? Like, just thinking of someone looking in, and we're all like, oh my god. But it's really fun.
It is a fun game.
Okay.
You want to go first?
Sure. So playing Among Us, like, one thing I really felt, I was the imposter a few times, like, no big deal. I'm kind of famous, but I was chosen as imposter quite often. And I immediately feel this thing come over my body, which I think is a part of the reason why it's such an addictive game, where you're like, holy shit, like, I'm lying. Like, no one's in the room. These are all strangers. Like, I'm lying. I'm guilty.
Like, you're nervous the whole time that someone is like watching or knows.
Exactly. And what I would describe that is that you're guilty. Like, you're already guilty. And so I was like, okay, I want to look at guilt. Like, what does that feel like? Like, why is that sort of something that people might want? And I came across a study that was really fascinating, and I genuinely was like, okay, is this why Among Us? Like, did I find the answer?
Okay, cool.
So essentially, the way the study worked was that they got fMRI. Here we go. They got people in an fMRI, and they just had them say 3 different types of sentences. One was a neutral sentence. One was a sentence that involved guilt or admitting guilt. And one was a sentence that involved shame and admitting shame. And they studied their brains to try and figure out what was going on in their brains. And with guilt, they found that there were parts of the brain called the fusiform gyrus, the middle temporal gyrus, that would light up, which made sense. But also the amygdala would light up, as opposed to shame and neutral, not the case. And so the amygdala, that's related to fear, that's related to anxiety, it's also related to excitement. So innately there's this piece where it's like, when you're guilty, your body is essentially excited. Like, it is anxious, it's excited because it's like, you're like, oh my, like, even just saying the word guilty or feeling guilt, I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then relating it to the benign violation theory, which this study also talked about, which is something I really love because it has to do with humor, which is that we find things humorous when they violate something within our society. They say something wrong. They do something wrong. Right, they make fun of a
boundary.
Yeah, I have done stand-up. RIP, comedy's dead. But before the pandemic, I would do comedy, and I had a joke about Princess Diana, which I always found did really well, because that is a great example of like something that's taboo, but it's kind of been long enough
that
and
you can start to make
it's
jokes
like
about it.
Innately, she is a rich white person. Like, there's just like a world where you can make a joke about it that's like, oh shit, like, we all know that's bad, but the way I do it, it's like, that is the best example of a joke I have that's benign violation theory, where people laugh because they're like, oh my god, I shouldn't be laughing. Right. But it's just like a way that you present tough things but in a safe space. And so what this article was saying was that if you can give someone shame or guilt within this benign violation theory, it feels really good. And that's exactly what Among Us is doing. You are feeling guilty. You get to feel the excitement and anxiety of being guilty, but in the confines of a game that isn't real. So it's like you're getting to play with these emotions of like killing. This is probably like most video games, like killing, like being excited, like getting killed.
Things that you would never really do in real life or know is taboo.
Exactly, but it's safe, and that is so appealing to us humans. In fact, that's the that's the main function of humor.
Yeah.
I find humor fascinating because it's like hasn't been defined by the laws of physics or nature. Like what's funny to someone might not be funny. It's hard to define.
Wow, I honestly hadn't thought of this. In some ways, when you say it, I'm like, oh, that's so obvious.
Yeah.
But it's so true that it allows you to experience a world. And I guess games in general, a lot of them, not all of them, allow you to experience things that you don't necessarily want to experience for real, but it can give you the thrill of them.
Okay, I'm like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. Because I'm like, all games, even like euchre, for example, you're experiencing beating.
You're showing your age. Oh,
Okay.
also that's a Canadian game, isn't it?
Oh, I love that then.
It's
for
a card
anyone.
game.
Euchre, it's French-Canadian.
Canon Canadian.
But it's like you're like me and you and my parents playing euchre. It's like I'm still getting to beat my parents at
Right,
something. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, which isn't normal.
And not feel
And it's not
guilty,
even
yeah.
necessarily that like fun.
Because you would
but
never
it's
want
like,
your parents to lose in real life.
No.
But in a game,
it's like
kind
you're
of-
playing with these
Yeah.
like emotions, with these like sort of hierarchies. That's a very simple example. Like I do think every game innately is giving you a pass to do something that's exciting in your life that you wouldn't be necessarily socially acceptable, but within the confines of a game, it is.
So, not to bring up myself too much.
Okay.
But
No, you
that's
haven't at all. I just
why
talked for
I
like 20 minutes.
am obsessed with Survivor and Big Brother. Because it's like the ultimate to me version of that. It's an acceptable space to play with how you act and manipulate people.
Oh my God. And I'm like, I think I maybe don't like Big Brother because I don't think of it as a game.
As a game, yeah.
I think of it as real life, and I think of it as
and
cruel.
because other versions around the world are
Wow.
not a strategy game, but for me, I'm like, I like it because it's like it's a real life board game where, but it really tests the limits because you're actually meeting and living and getting to know people, and that was like an interesting experience for me to like near the end of my time there. I started questioning my own morality and my own ethics because I was like, how far am I willing to go? And I think that Among Us maybe doesn't push you that far because these are anonymous people. You're in a game,
but you're
simulation.
playing with it. That concept.
You are, yeah, exactly. It's on a spectrum of that same world. I think to me, reality television strategy shows are the most extreme version of this.
Wow, that's so
Which
interesting.
makes sense when you think Survivor and Big Brother, two of the original reality shows still on some of the longest running shows of all time. Not of all time necessarily, but of that genre.
I'm like, Mitch just pushed me. I'm kidding. But yeah, he's like, and that's why they're still on. I fall off the chair. But I really think that's true. Like, I think benign violation theory is fascinating. I think I haven't been really thinking about it that much because I haven't been doing comedy, but it's a really cool way to observe humor. And I think it really clicks for a lot of people when you start to see like, why am I laughing? It's usually something that's like quote
Push that
unquote
boundary,
wrong, but you're
yeah.
aware that it's a joke. So it makes you okay to laugh. I think that's what Among Us is doing. And it is fun.
Totally.
And as much as I love like even only like talking to people about whether they're gay or not, that's the same thing. It's literally
Yeah.
me being like, this isn't okay for me to
can
go,
also-
I'm gay, are
Yeah.
you? And I'm just doing it
You're
like
like
to strangers.
testing the fabric of social interactions.
Yes. Oh,
Honestly,
wow.
Which is what the internet with strangers is for a lot of people as well. I think that's what is so appealing about being a troll to some people on Twitter, on forums, is that they're anonymous. So it's in a safe environment that they can't actually hurt someone and they themselves can't be exposed, but they can play with these ideas of what happens if I do something that's actually socially unacceptable and just push some of these buttons.
And it's like, I hate trolls because we're like YouTubers, and it's like, so we know we're like, that's real.
because we're the real part
I'm
of
like,
the equation.
like, people call me a faggot like 79 times a day. I thought they were real. Like,
To take a little interlude before I go into my science, we're playing a game right now. I don't think we brought this up on the podcast.
oh my God, are we ready to tell people?
We're playing a game called Spiritfarer that
I'd say the first game I'm actually into, and it's the first time in my life where
okay,
I've been like,
that is hurtful to me, by the way. I've like tried so long to get you into Zelda, which is just as equally beautiful.
Okay,
and
no. Oh my God.
life-changing.
Okay, I am in no way saying that Zelda isn't beautiful or life-changing. In fact, I have been into Zelda in different parts of my life. And what I will say is me having never had a video game, mi très stupide when it comes to video games in a way that I don't think people can really understand. Like, it is rare that I've gone through my life, no Game Boy, nothing. No Pokemon, nothing. I am missing a literacy of video games. Zelda is very hard. And it's very challenging. Sorry, to me.
No, I understand.
Like-
Especially without that video game like base.
Oh
knowledge.
my God, I'm literally running in circles on a horse, and Mitch is eventually like, okay, maybe you should go to the tree that's sparkling. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? What the sparkling? Like, it's like, you know what I mean? You have the,
Right,
like,
you're conditioned to understand. Like people who play video games are conditioned to kind of understand the base set of rules.
Exactly. In this Spiritfarer game, we started together,
Yeah.
which has been helpful because it's like, you'll be like, the water is sparkling, and then like go jump in the water, and then I'm like, oh my God, and I press A and this thing happens, and I'm like, oh my God, but it's like, you told me the water's sparkling. My brain literally was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh my God, the water is sparkling. So I think there's that, like, you're helping me.
Right. There's the confidence too for you to feel like we're in it together. Like we take turns. It's just a like single player game,
And
then we
it's
pass them
very, so far, quite easy. You can't die, which I hate dying. Like, I really, like, you know what?
out. One of my least favorite things in life is dying.
Okay, any screen ever in my life that's gone game over, and I know you can start again, done, throw the controller off, like, there's nothing more hurtful than a game over. Whereas like this game so far, I'm really into it because I'm like, I don't think you can game over. Like, I don't think I can die.
So far as we know, yeah.
So far as we know. And there's a large portion of it that's just truly gardening. And that's what I like to do in real life.
Yeah,
Give me a game and I'll just garden.
It's a game about death as well, and it's about helping spirits pass. And so I think I'm excited that we're playing it. We're not even that far into it, or I don't know how long the game is.
First time in
but-
our life where I go, Greg goes, oh my God, I keep calling Greg. Where I go, Mitch, let's play Spiritfarer. And he goes, oh, I'm a little busy. Like, I'm
Well-
like, I didn't know. I'm like, okay.
Well, I think it's an amazing game. I'm really happy you're into it, and I think it is showing you what I think the possibility of games can be, because
Yeah.
I think, and this is no shade or shame on playing games that don't have this attribute, but some games, and Zelda is this to me, really can bring out like beautiful life lessons, like a book. And I know sometimes they're simplistic. Sometimes it's simple. Like if you read Harry Potter, you could say this is basic, this is simple, but there are like these nice heartwarming messages and
Yeah.
relationships, and you're with characters for like hours. Like
It's storytelling.
It might take you 10 hours to read a book, but it could take you 100 hours to play a game, and so
Yeah.
you really can get connected. And I think in this game, we're meeting characters. It's just the beginning, but probably my anticipation is that at some point they're gonna sort of pass over, and we're helping them do that, and that's probably gonna be really sad.
I think that's gonna
and
happen to our
beautiful.
first spirit.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm literally gonna start crying. I want to stop saying
So all
literally.
I mean
damn
is
it.
that video games have this other dimension and element. I don't, and
Among
I don't
Us
think Among
doesn't
Us
have it.
but that's okay.
Wait, unless you fall in love with someone who's real
in the chat
in
because
the
they're
chat,
gay,
because
and
they're
it's
gay,
Greg.
and then and it's me.
Anyway, I think if you hadn't played it, it's worth checking out. Obviously, we're not far enough in the game for me to like fully recommend yet, but I do think it's very peaceful, very chill. It kind of reminds me of Animal Crossing, where you're more just like tending to things. You're given challenges that might be a little stressful, but you can't die. So it's just like this beautiful game.
The
to
music
experience.
is incredible. The
Mm-hmm.
graphics are really cool. It was recommended by Kid Fury from the best podcast ever created called The Read, and I trust them on truly
Totally.
everything. So that's like another thing. Is like it's been recommended by someone amazing, which is why we started. Also, a part of it is that you have to look after them. It has Tamagotchi vibes. Like you're like looking after these
Yeah.
things.
Mhm.
And one of the things
And
you have
it
to do
that
is
goes
hug
to
them.
show that concept has lasted for so long. Games where you care for things.
Yeah.
Animal Crossing is that.
And our dog.
Tamagotchi.
We still have dogs.
That's real,
But you have to hug people in it, and it's so nice.
It's so
You
cute. They
hug
just go,
them, and they pause for a second,
Yeah.
and I always every time get a little nervous, and then it goes, and that's okay. We're moving on back to benign violation theory. It's giving you that human
That's
thing of just
true.
going up, hugging someone deeply, like that can
That's
feel
so
scary,
true,
and it's
Greg.
giving you that.
That's really interesting. Like I wouldn't typically associate that benign violation theory with positive things. We always go like, oh, of course people want to shoot guns and kill people in games.
Yeah.
They want to push the boundary
Oh my
of like
God, they just want to
violence.
hug.
But I think this game allows you to go up to a character, any character you want, offer hugs. Sometimes they don't accept it
and
because
it's
they go,
so
I don't need
cute.
it right
they go,
now.
sorry, not right now. It's like about consent.
Yeah, but then when you get it, it is like
So nice.
Obviously, for a lot of people, intimacy and physical affection, especially to people you don't know well, can be a barrier. And I think the game allows you to experience that, where you go, I'm going to put myself out there and maybe not. Okay, this is so related to my study. Maybe not get the thing that I thought I was going to get. Right? Because you might sometimes get rejected in your hug in a nice
which
way.
makes it even more.
It's so special when you get it. So, sorry, I have to burp.
Oh my God, he just cuked. He absolutely hurled, chucked buckets on the table.
Okay. So my study is related to sort of why I think Among Us on another level is so sort of addictive. It reminded me of the hug versus no hug in Spirit Fair. Okay. That's where I'm going. So obviously video games, in many ways, as any games, rely on that sort of like dopaminergic reward system. And we all kind of know what that is. Like when something good happens, whether it's food, sex, games giving you a reward, your brain fires off in certain areas, releases dopamine, and that system, it feels good and it triggers you to want to do it more. It creates habits, creates reward-seeking behaviors. But what studies have found that is so fascinating is that to optimize that dopamine release, you don't actually give people more reward. You actually give them near misses. So instead of just like a game that would allow you to feel something great all the time, you have to give an experience where you almost get the thing, but don't get it. And what science has found
Gambling.
It's literally, this is the basis of these studies are often in gambling. And
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're called near misses. And that in those situations, your brain and body act at its optimum dopamine surge. Wow. So you feel like you won even though you lost because your body gets the reward. Now, one really interesting thing is that the actual dopamine release comes as an anticipatory effect. So you don't actually get the dopamine release when you get the reward. You get it right before. So your body is like obviously the first time you play a game, you maybe aren't quite conditioned to get the dopamine surge until you get the reward the first time. But beyond that, your body actually starts to give you the reward before you get the reward, essentially, in the game. So for me, I was thinking about Among Us and how whether you are the imposter or just a crewmate,
measly old crewmate, you're constantly playing this game where you're trying to guess or trying to hide or trying to whatever, and it's such a good balance of you might get it right, but you often get it wrong. Yeah.
Everyone's voting. Even the imposters living this existence where they're
lying to you, making you
people,
get it wrong.
And
too.
sometimes they might just straight up lose because they might have like taken just too much of a risk. And now suddenly that risk gives you the adrenaline because the reward was that you might have gotten away with it. And that's why risky behaviors in general, like people can become really quite conditioned because... What was that?
I was like, Among Us is gambling for kids.
It's literally gambling, except with no actual things at stake, which is nice.
Yeah, no money at stake, which is nice.
Yeah.
Oh God.
In studies, like scientists have realized, even with monkeys, that if they're rewarded only 50% of the time when they do a thing, they're more likely to become addicted or more likely to be compelled and motivated to do the thing than if they're given the reward every single time.
Yeah.
Which seems counterintuitive. You'd think like if a candy or a treat was given every time I push the green button, I'd be more likely to push it. When in fact, if sometimes you push it and nothing happens, it creates this system in your brain where you are so compelled by it. Why does it work sometimes? Why do I get it sometimes? This near miss is like this kind of magic number. And I feel like Among Us taps into that.
That's so true. And it reminds me of something I learned a lot in teachers college and like even as in classroom teacher is like you're constantly trying to motivate kids for me to love science. That can be really challenging when you have the curriculum at hand. And it's like this type of thought process that we're talking about right now is like so important for motivating kids because there's like the teachers who like are the ones who sort of give too much and the kids then
kind of check out or
like it's like they like don't like there's it's not a direct comparison there, right? It's like but you need like
it feels so rewarding when you work hard at something.
Exactly. And you're also trying to teach kids that like working hard and failing is okay and that's how you learn. And it's like I just feel like I can't think of a direct comparison, but it reminds me of like what you're taught to do with teaching kids, which is like how do you get them to feel rewarded when they work hard but also feel like failing and like making mistakes is okay, and I feel like Among Us is doing that. It's like making it like addictive
And it's a
to
safe
fail,
space to
addictive
experiment. Yeah, you can take risks. You can try something new. Something I found really interesting
cool.
is the question becomes, why would human evolution lead to a trait that rewards you more for a near miss than an actual win? Right? Does that not seem confusing?
Well, like I'm like evolution.
I have sort of an
evolutionary
answer.
biologists we've like sort of ripped on this podcast before too. It's so fun because it's like you get to just like, you know, like sometimes throw in your little things and like make things make sense. And if I'm putting my evolutionary biologist hat on, I would be like, it makes sense that over time we've evolved to make a lot of misses. So you need to like be able to figure out how to neurologically adapt to that to keep going.
Yeah.
Because like
That's
life
a great
is
answer,
never
Greg.
gonna
I'll
give
tell you that you got the answer right, or at least
Oh, wait.
what other evolutionary.
I thought you were
biologists
asking me arbitrarily.
think. No, there's a real hypothesis around, because it feels counterintuitive that the near miss would give you a bigger dopamine surge than the actual reward.
But that's life.
Exactly. So they
Yeah.
gave the example of basketball or any sport. If you were to not get a reward when you almost score the goal, you would give up. You'd be like, this actually feels bad. But when you get a reward, when you almost get it, it actually intrinsically motivates you as a Homo sapien to try again. And so whether that's more deeply related to hunting or any human activity that became essential, it's sort of like this near miss dopaminergic system is there to actually give you motivation. And I think you brought up astutely an amazing example of kids learning and how maybe teachers should and could think about
It's
teaching.
so hard to teach.
Of course. Yeah. Of course, something hard will always be challenging. And I think, but that's why learning something or completing something or doing something challenging is always so much more rewarding.
Yeah, it is.
Because you also spend a lot of time with near misses where you feel like you almost got it. And then when you finally get it, you're just like euphoric.
That's
and
so
those
true.
near misses keep you compelled to keep trying because you're like, it feels good. You feel like you won in a sense. Even though emotionally and intellectually you might know it was a loss, you're now compelled to keep going. It's why it's so addictive to try and shoot a 3-pointer over and over and over.
Yeah, 3-pointer, shoot.
As if I've ever done
And
that.
you were like at basketball when they get a
And
goal.
by the way-
I'm like, I'm pretty sure they don't call it goals, but
What do they call it? A net?
when they get a basket, when they get a well, you said 3-pointer, that was good. When they get the shot
Yeah.
in, oh my god, don't ask me, fudge. I think that you're really good at that, and I struggle with this. I think that, like, I think about my computer right now. The OCS drive is full. I've been trying for
Oh my god! This is the
ever
most
to
insane
fix
thing.
it. Like,
for maybe 2 months, Greg's been like, my computer has no space,
And
so every day he's like, Mitch, I can't do the thing. I can't open my
I
email.
have space on my data drive. Anyways, I'm just saying, like, with computers and technology, you have worked this muscle to be able to be like, okay, like there's a mistake, and then I fix it. With computers, I don't have this, and it's like every time something goes wrong, I'm like, it's like the game over in a video game. I want to close it. I'm like, I'm done, because like I don't think there's an end in sight here. You need to know there's an end in sight, which Among Us gives you, which a lot of things in life give you. But like, I'm just like, I have
get
an
conditioned
example
for that.
Yeah, I have and like, so
because you didn't grow up with it, so you haven't learned that there
is
always
like, and
a
I've been
reward.
with you when you've helped me and you've been like, oh my god, I like figured it out and it works and it feels really good. But I'm like, I genuinely think at the end of the road for me with this computer is like dead. Like there's no end of the road, even though I know there is. I'm like, I'm not capable. So that's the thing with teaching. You have to be able to allow your kids to understand they're capable and make sure you set parameters up that they're capable so they can succeed.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what Among Us does. It's so contained, so like you can succeed because
Yeah,
it's
it's not-
so obvious, and it's like there's not that many parameters, so you get to have that.
Anyone can win.
Exactly.
Which is nice that the barrier to entry is
And
like
it
quite
ends.
low.
It's like fast. Like it's like why it's not the same as teaching or like anything. Like because it's fast, it's quick, it's like you're getting it. It's why we're addicted to it. And like, but in life, the metaphor is like bigger and more like challenging. And I think one thing I'll say, last sort of anecdote that relates to this. So painting is an act that I love, and I feel like I've like mastered in my life. So I know what it feels like to be halfway through a painting and you're like God, this is so ugly. But I like know with time and with like adding like more negative space in these things, it'll come together as this thing that I'm like, okay, objectively, this is like good, or like I'm okay
Like
with
rewarding,
this.
yeah.
Rewarding. Writing is something I've always struggled with, and only recently have I started to like get into it as a challenge. In therapy, I've learned that I'm obsessed with like challenging things because I'm scared of dying. LOL, different story. But it's like I find with writing, there was never that North Star moment. I always loved science and math. I like right answers. I don't like arbitrary things. And recently I've realized like there's been moments where I'm writing, and then all of a sudden it like clicks. And it's like this amazing feeling that I've like uncovered. Oh, wow, it's possible to put in the effort and have that dopamine release with writing. And now I'm like addicted to writing. So it's like you have to also sometimes.
Okay, it's like Among Us is giving us like the best life lessons we could ever learn.
Well, and also like giving people those experiences that are so innate to life, to us. It's like part of our neurology, like in a contained, fun, addictive space.
I just think that is really interesting that you brought that up, especially with art and
not computers. Okay.
And not computers, but I just mean like to know. You're right. You do kind of need to know that you can win.
Yeah. Yeah.
As soon as you're in the realm where you believe you cannot, it's done.
It's done, or it's like all the fun sucked out of it.
Yeah, because even with your computer, it's like you don't think you can fix your computer.
I don't. I've truly spent. I would say on average 8 hours trying to fix this.
No way.
To no end. To a constant like this program is running. I'm like, Microsoft Word isn't running in another program because like I haven't used that thing in years. Like it's just like
Greg,
there's something.
Okay. Give me your computer.
I know, and I want to watch you do it and have you have the experience, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm excited to keep playing Spiritfarer with you. I think that it's a great eye-opening experience in some ways, and hopefully it could open that door even for me. Like I don't play a lot of video games,
and I like Among Us. I do like Among Us. It's fun.
Okay, so now I'm gonna like share my hot take is I actually don't love Among Us, but maybe I haven't played it enough. I've only played it a handful of times, a couple times on my own, like a couple evenings, and then with when our friends like were one time we were playing with them. I enjoyed it, but
she's an intellectual. I'm kidding.
I don't know what it is. I guess it's because it's so short and so sudden that maybe the reward's not big enough for me. Like,
have you been the imposter?
I have, yeah. I've never won as the imposter. Like I haven't played enough to win, so obviously I haven't played that much. But I guess I just feel like I don't know.
It has a
to be honest, I can't.
trendy energy.
Yeah, but like Fortnite, I got into because it had a level of challenge and frustration that was enough. Whereas I feel like this game is, I don't know how to describe it yet. I don't want to like drag it at all because I think it is fun. I enjoyed playing it, especially when we were playing with our friends. I thought that's fun.
It was also weird because it's like you
lying to your
can't
friends.
talk.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
so we were just like with your friends. We
You're
was
not
in our
supposed to say,
backyard,
yeah.
and like we're physically distancing on our phones, not
There was 2
talking.
people.
And I'm like, we're in our backyard, like hanging out. It's cold. We're spending this time together. And I'm like, we could be doing this at home. You know what I mean? I was like, this isn't the best use of like an afternoon physical distance hang. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's like, okay, guys, now no talking. And then we're just on our phones.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I feel like the payoff for me has, even when I played on my own, it didn't quite get me enough. And maybe because I wasn't, honestly, maybe because I'm not good enough at it. Like maybe I have that barrier where I'm like, ugh, I don't want to be like
you are like competitive and win at games.
Fair, but fair.
No,
I
you
guess,
do like in a weird way that like I think people know that about you. Like playing games with you is particularly challenging because you do win because you're good, and maybe it's hard for you when you're not good.
or when it feels like there's not always not easy, but like a path for me to be good at it. Like I feel like Among Us, as I've played so far, I'm like, it doesn't require enough strategy to make me feel like I can get better at this. Like in a way that.
But that's so funny. I'm like, that's a life lesson for you, because it's like some things are like that.
Yeah.
You can't master everything.
No, that's true.
And it's because know what it is. It's not an algorithm, it's people. I mean, people's brains are an algorithm, arguably, but
I think part of it is that I'm older, and like the idea of having to message text wise.
That's my favorite part.
Really? I wish it was just talking, because I feel like when we play Werewolf, it's just communicating. It's just verbal talking, and I love to like try and convince people, but I feel like I'm not fast enough. When
I find it thrilling to text with strangers more than like talk, because it's like, you know what I mean? It can be so coded and weird.
Yeah.
Sus. They're sus. They're sus. Saw them vent.
Okay, I learned sus finally 4 years after. It
I
became
thought
a phrase.
sus was a problematic term. It just like has a problematic like energy
Suspect?
to it. Just like when someone's like, oh, they're sus. I was like, and then I found out it had to do with suspect. I was like, wow, a clean word we can actually use. Okay.
Oh man.
Well, that was
okay.
fun.
Yeah, that was fun. Do you promise me you'll play more video games?
I'm like obsessed with Spiritfarer, and it's actually on you to play it with me.
Okay, you're right. That is on me.
And then after that, we'll see how we go. Yeah. But yes, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for listening. Celine Dion.
Here in my heart.
An episode on Celine Dion. What?
I was singing Beyonce. You were singing Celine.
Okay. Anyways, #Side Note Podcast. If you want to get in touch with us on Twitter, go on our Instagram at ASAP Science, where we post a lot of clips where you can see my red face right now if you want to. And yeah, we want to hear from you. We love that people listen to this podcast, and one day we might have ads.
Yeah. Love you guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll
Bye.
see you next week.